Hey everyone, welcome back to another Tic Tac Taiko. Too many of you, in my opinion, are gripping your bachi too tight. So in this video, we're going to talk about why I think people do it, what happens when people do it, and how to make it stop happening. See you after the opening. One fun thing about my videos is you never know exactly what I'm going to say. If you like this video, let me know with a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, please do so. So I think I'm going to put it right here. And anyways, doing both of those lets people know that this is quality content and it will get to more people in the Taiko community. Thank you. There are probably a lot of reasons why people grip their bachi too tight, but I'm going to focus on the two that I think are the most common. Theory number one. If you're not holding onto your bachi well enough, strongly enough, you might feel like it's going to fly out of your hands, and for good reason. When you're pulling up, whether it's on beta or flinging back when it's on naname, there's a lot of force, even if you just kind of go casually, and you do not want your bachi flying out of your hands. I mean, if you've ever had it happen, you know it's the worst feeling in a performance, even in a practice. I've had it happen. You've probably had it happen. So you might want to grip a little tighter to prevent that. And on the other side of the equation is the strike. When you're coming down, the bachi is hitting the drum or drum pad or whatever, and it's gonna bounce. And if you don't hold on to it tightly enough, that feeling of it might fly out of your hands is very real. And again, a lot of you, including myself, have had that happen. So I think that's one of the main reasons, is the fear of losing the bachi, losing control of where it goes. As for the second reason, this is more about the physiology of human beings, how you and I tend to function. Have you ever been so stressed out or so angry that you found your fists clenched tightly? And it wasn't until after the moment passed or until you found sort of a break in those emotions that you could let your fingers open and let your hand relax. Or maybe you found yourself hunched over or really tight or holding tension in your shoulders, your neck, your upper back, whatever, and you were able to finally make yourself relax. Maybe you breathed it out or straightened up your posture, whatever it was. In these situations, the default is the tension, and you have to actively relax, which sounds counterintuitive, but that's what our bodies tend to do. And so when you have a bachi and you're gripping and you're squeezing and you're playing and you're getting really, really tight, it's less likely that naturally you will open up and loosen your grip. It's more natural that you're going to hold that grip tight in a fixed state until you actively tell your hand, hey, loosen up. And this is not natural. This is easy, and it takes practice. It takes deliberate practice, which is one of the purposes of this week's video. Let's talk about what happens when you grip too hard. Why is it so bad? Why am I making a video about it? The easiest way to demonstrate why this is bad is to have you squeeze too hard, much harder than you would normally do, to feel that extreme. So I've got my bachi, I'm squeezing really hard, and my hand is trembling. All right, so that's already a loss of control. And I can't even put it down in a comfortable position because there's only so much mobility. I'm limiting mobility. If I was relaxed, well, now I can make all kinds of shapes. But once I'm tight, once I'm this tense, I'm limited. I have to compensate by bending in weird places and changing my posture. That's another reason why it's going to be bad. Now, granted, you're not going to squeeze as tight as possible, but it's showing you when you start moving in that direction, these are the things that happen, maybe in more subtle ways. And then finally, with you gripping too hard, just try to play a few notes. That feels horrible. Okay, I'm gonna loosen up, and you should too if you are following along. If my bachi has no space in my hand or my fingers, everything is touching everything essentially, then this is the range of motion I have. You can see it's not a very big arc. I can still get some force out of it, but that force hurts. It starts to hurt my fingers. It starts to really work my wrist in ways that it shouldn't be worked. But if I loosen up just a little bit, way more range of motion, which means I can generate a lot more power. And if I'm loosening up a lot and letting the fingers do whatever they want to do. Look at that. That's almost 180 degrees. That's a lot of power that this tight grip just won't allow. Before we can address this issue, before we can fix anything, it's important to get a baseline of where you are. So imagine a spectrum from 0 to 100. 100 is the extreme tight grip. We were just doing that earlier, right? It hurts. I'm squeezing too hard. No one wants to be there. 0 is the other end of the spectrum, and this is equally unrealistic, unhelpful. So when I say figuring out where you are in the spectrum, it's not finding your number, 67, 14.3. I mean, even 50, which is right in the middle, is really hard to figure out. If this is 100 and this is 0, what is 50? And how do you know when you're there? So the number isn't the point. My theory, my advice, if you will, is always go in the direction of 0. You're never going to get to 0, but you want the lowest possible number while still being functional. Considering our default is to always go towards 100, it's good to practice going the other way. If anything, at least it might balance things out. So here's what I want you to try. I want you to stand at the drum, whether it's shime, beta, Taiko, just something natural, imagining that you're about to play something, like the song starts in 15 seconds, and it's a practice, it's not super stressful, right? So just you're waiting to go. And then, without changing anything, I want you to just notice what your grips do. So for example, if I were to take bachi away from my hand, nothing would change. I know I'm very relaxed in this position. So maybe the fingers move in a little bit, but what I'm not doing, and I have seen and done this with others, where their hands move because there's friction, there's tension on that bachi. It's not ever this bad, at least I haven't seen it, but definitely have seen people move because they're gripping harder than they need to. In this position, I'm not playing. When I'm about to play, I might squeeze and then lift, but I don't need tension here. And so this is sort of a first drill, if you will, to just give you a baseline. When you don't need to have tension, how much do you have? The next drill or exercise is playing a simple straight beat, starting at 100 in terms of tension and moving towards 0. You can't get to 0 because, again, 0 is not going to give you any tension. Your hand's going to move without holding the bachi, but you're moving in that direction. And then once you're there, start again. It'll look something like this. It doesn't matter what tempo you play at. It doesn't even matter how loud. I could be really trying to hit. It'll be harder when I get closer to 0, but it's a good exercise to see what that feels like. Once you've done this a few times, you want to try your left hand, of course, but this is what we're going to do after that. You don't have to start at 100 this time. You'll start somewhere in the middle. It doesn't really matter, but you're going to try to stay as close to 0 as possible and just adjust, figure things out. You're not aiming for a specific position or the right way to do it. You're trying to figure out, can I play functionally? Can I make sound with a good quality, with good consistency, while playing very relaxed? Probably more relaxed than you're used to playing. And that's the point. And one of the things you can see I'm doing is trying different fingers in different configurations, turning my wrist in different ways, using more elbow, using more of the wrist to push down. And sometimes you saw it was blah, blah, blah. It was not a very good strike. That's okay. I moved away from that. So the goal isn't to find a certain thing. The goal is to experiment. And I would do that drill right and left, back and forth, over and over, because in a lot of ways, this is a new skill that you're trying to teach your hands and your brain. And after that, just try some basic Taiko rudiments with the same idea. Start a little grippy and then try to get as loose as possible. See what happens. At this point, any rudiment works. You can also try patterns from songs or entire songs if you want. You can try improvising, it doesn't matter. But I want to give you two slight warnings. The first thing is that as you get close to zero, you're going to find you pull back a bit and get a grip that works. Like, all right, that was sloppy, but now I've got control. Don't sit there. Don't get comfortable with that. Keep trying to go back to zero. Keep playing with this area, this back and forth. Not enough, just enough. Not enough, just enough. Because you want to be familiar with this skill. Because if you don't and you get comfortable with just a loose grip, that's not helping you learn how to relax. That's helping you learn a grip. But we're not looking at a grip. We're looking at the concept of making yourself relax. I hope that makes sense. And number two, this drill, these exercises, however you do them, will have you feeling uncomfortable for long periods of time. I mean, not hours, but longer than you would like. Because as Taiko players, we don't like to feel uncomfortable. I mean, as humans, we don't like to feel uncomfortable. But growth, true growth, only happens through discomfort. And this is a very managed discomfort. Nobody's watching you, and if they are, well, good for them, let them watch. But there's no reason not to sort of own that discomfort, because you're doing it for a very good cause. And that cause is you. I want to explain why I keep stressing the idea of moving towards zero, stressing that the direction is important more than a specific point or a specific grip. The next time you play Taiko, whenever it is, if my premise is correct, like I said in the beginning of the video, you're probably gripping the bachi too tight. So the idea behind this week's video is going through the process of, what's my grip? It's probably too tight. I'm going to loosen you. And then maybe a minute later, what's my grip? It's probably too tight. Loosen it up. It's more likely than not, if you don't have this thought process, that you're going to keep a tight grip and maybe even get tighter. I'm not immune from this. This is something I've practiced a lot so that I have those little bursts from my brain to my fingers. Loosen up, loosen up, loosen up, to the point where it becomes automatic. At least I hope. At least it feels that way somewhat. And that's what I'm hoping people can start to practice themselves. That's why the idea of going in that direction is more important than the destination itself. So there you have a few ideas, a few concepts on how to bring relaxation into your Taiko playing, regardless of whatever style, whatever school, whatever philosophy of Taiko that you currently have. And the key to incorporating this is to actively practice it. It's not going to ever sink in if you occasionally remember, oh yeah, loosen up my grip. Oh yeah, relax here. I strongly suggest that you take anything you want to do, a drill, a song, something based on speed, something based on endurance, naname, beta, doesn't matter. Pick something that you can practice for a little while and focus solely on the concept of relaxation, the stuff that I talked about earlier. Otherwise, this will not sink in, and it has to happen more than just once. It takes work to be relaxed. And I can't stress enough how valuable this concept is to incorporate into every aspect of Taiko playing you do. So, until next time, keep on relaxing and be well.